Hello and welcome to another NFL Draft scouting video from Pigskin Prodigies for the 2018 draft. In today's breakdown, we'll be taking a look at Notre Dame guard Quenton Nelson by discussing his pro prospects. So, with that in mind, let's jump right in. First of all, you look at the physical package that Nelson brings. He is 6'5" and 330 pounds according to the Notre Dame Athletics webpage. So he has good size for the guard position, a little taller than your typical guard prospect, but he does a good job of keeping his pads low to kind of counter that, and he plays with leverage, so don't worry about his height too much for the position that he's playing. So getting into his actual skill set, pass blocking, he is very good at sustaining blocks. In pass protection, he does a nice job of anchoring against power rushers, and he's basically immovable when power rushers try to bull rush him. They rarely ever get much push against him, if any. And according to Pro Football Focus, just to speak to how effective he was as a pass blocker this year, Nelson allowed just 5 quarterback pressures all year in 2017. So I think that just speaks to the level of proficiency Nelson displays and demonstrates in pass protection. So getting into run blocking, Nelson is an elite, dominant run blocker. You see him consistently drive defenders into the ground, drive them backwards. He's great as a drive blocker. He keeps his legs driving, and after engaging with his defender, and he just finishes every block. He has that nasty streak to him. Everything you love in an offensive lineman. I think that makes him a perfect fit for a gap or power scheme. I think he also can fit into a zone blocking scheme as well. I think he's athletic enough to pull and execute those zone running concepts. But I would personally like him best in a gap scheme. I feel like that would be the best use of his talents. But along with run blocking, he plays with good technique there as well. He fires out of his stance with low pad level, plays with leverage. He, as I said, is athletic enough to pull and execute those zone running concepts. The only real knock I have on Quenton Nelson, basically, is that he will occasionally whiff on blocks when he's pulling to the edge and outside zone run concepts. But that's really the only, I guess, one of the only somewhat consistent issues that I noticed on film with him. So I think his best use would be in drive blocking. Use him a lot in drive blocking concepts in a gap scheme, but he is athletic enough to pull, so you can definitely use him in that capacity as well. I just feel that he would be better suited to, be used in the drive blocking concepts. Alright, so getting into overall kind of evaluation of his technique, he does a good job of staying square to the line of scrimmage, and he almost never gets overextended. He bends at the knees, he maintains a proper pad level, which is especially important given his size. It prevents shorter, kind of squattier defensive linemen from gaining a leverage advantage on him because he's able to play low. Another thing he does well, he shoots his hands inside quickly and wins the inside hands battle. And he delivers a strong punch too, so once he gets latched onto a defender, they probably aren't going anywhere. They're pretty much finished for that play. The only technical issue I noted that crops up occasionally is that his hands can get a little too wide at times. So, though he is pretty consistent with his hand placement, that's just, maybe I'm nitpicking there, but I noticed that occasionally his hands can get a little wide, so he could get called for holding in the NFL for that if that continues to occur, but it doesn't happen too often, so maybe I'm nitpicking there, and yeah, I guess that's it. And getting into the last two aspects that I evaluate offensive linemen on, movement skills is really important, especially for projecting someone's fit into a zone blocking scheme. Nelson has good athleticism for his size. He's huge, but he displays good footwork, agility, and lateral movement for such a large human. And in terms of pulling, he has decent speed, and he's a pretty fluid mover in the open field. So I think he's athletic enough, as I said, to execute those zone running concepts, and that'll make him appealing to every team in the NFL, no matter what running scheme they desire to run. And then lastly, this is a super important trait for offensive linemen: awareness and blitz recognition. Quenton Nelson displays outstanding awareness and recognition of stunts and blitzes. If you watched the Georgia game, there was a play where he had no one to block, I think, initially, and then he noticed a pass rusher blitzing from one of the right side gaps, and he swivels over, and he just like knocks him out, knocks him off his feet. It was a pretty awesome play. It was a delayed blitz, I think, and somehow he had the awareness to like see that guy and just like knock him off his feet and keep the quarterback clean on that play. So that was a super impressive play from him and a great example of his awareness and recognition. And with that, Nelson does a great job of keeping his head on a swivel, and he's always looking for work when he's doubling or doesn't have anyone to block initially. He's always aware and kind of scanning the field to make sure he can keep his quarterback out of harm's way, I guess. And then lastly, he's really good at executing combo blocks. Just seems to have a great understanding of the blocking scheme and always knows who his assignment is, and is just very effective as a puller, as a combo blocker, or whatever you need him to do. He can do everything effectively, so that'll make him appealing to a lot of NFL teams, and I'm sure many of them will regard him highly in this draft class. So to sum it all up, I regard Quenton Nelson as an elite prospect, as worthy of a top 10 pick. I think he's going to make a lot of Pro Bowls. I think there's a good chance he's an All-Pro in the future, and I think that he definitely should be a top 10 pick in my opinion. I know that some teams will devalue him because he's a guard, but I still feel that he's worthy of a top 10 pick, because if you can get a guard, even if he's a guard and he's pretty much a guaranteed All-Pro, if you feel that way, then why wouldn't you take him in the top 10? Like, there's no reason not to, in my opinion. I think the guard can be kind of underappreciated position. I think all of the offensive line positions are fairly important, so I think he would be worth a top 10 pick in my opinion, but maybe that's just me. And as far as an NFL comparison for him, I've compared him to David DeCastro of the Pittsburgh Steelers, an all-pro caliber player. I could see Quenton Nelson having a similar type of career. And yeah, that pretty much sums up my thoughts on Quenton Nelson. He's my number 2 player in this draft at the moment, behind Saquon Barkley, and I think he's one of the safest players in the draft. And yeah, I expect him to be a top 10 pick. He could maybe slide out of that range slightly, but I expect him to be a very high pick, and I expect the team that drafts him to be very happy with the way he turns out for their team. So yeah, with that, thank you very much for watching and listening, and I hope you stay tuned for future scouting videos that I will hopefully be dropping very soon.